now improving his resume with a top 8 finish already that could even get better today.
That's really important for all of you guys out there watching. If you want to come here on the biggest stage, get streamed live into the internet, this is how you do it. You just start playing Pokemon. You watch these streams, get better, try to understand what the top players are doing differently from those that are not progressing to the top 8. And all of a sudden you're here up against Marc Lutz, one of the living legends.
Yeah, one of the legends indeed. And he's proven himself. He is new to the game, but he's clearly got the processes behind it. He's playing established archetype, and here we go. We see Marc Lutz. He had a 5-0-2 record, breezing his way through the Swiss rounds, and you can see plenty of accomplishments under his belt. These are just a few. The most recent ones, Bremen Regionals, as well as a top 8 in Liverpool this season, so he's already achieved his Worlds invite. He has also top 8 at Germany National Championships, and also has won the ECC, which was previously a very, very prestigious tournament to win.
Undefeated, 5-0-2. So Marc Lutz is the one to beat, as both players are shuffling up their decks. We are about to get the top 8 action started. Small reminder for you guys, this is one of the top 8 matches that we'll be showing. We have 2 of them coming up, so this one and another one, and then we'll be moving on to the top 4 and the finals.
Indeed. So what do you really think is going to happen this game? It's going to be Night March versus Galissapod. How do you picture it?
Well, of course, Night March is very easy to picture because we've seen it for so many years. I don't know for how many years we've seen it. So, of course, Night March is going to go after a very strong start. But on the other side, Galissapod is also known to have very strong and explosive starts. So it really comes down to who's going to be able to get the first prizes in, and if Marc Lutz can pick up some 2 prize cards, knockouts here. And on the other hand, I can imagine that Stijm is trying to go after the Shaman EX to not only have, for example, a 7 prize game.
Yeah, indeed. And also he has 2 big factors that we have to keep an eye on throughout this series. He has the Garbotox in Garbodor trying to slow down Marc. Combine that with Ends, as Marc is more likely going to go ahead in the prize race initially because he is more often than not going to be trading 2 for 1 in the prize race with his low HP Night Marchers. But also Stijm is carrying an Oricorio in his list, which is technically put into these decks to be a counter towards Night March. So that's going to be an interesting interaction throughout this series.
Yeah, some decks also have a Hex Maniac, which is strong against Night March if you go first. Not so much Stijm, so he's relying on that Garbodor. So Marc is guaranteed to have 1 explosive turn 1, and he needs to take it well. But we can see here, oh boy,
wow.
3 versus Seeker.
Well, it looks like the Garbodor is also in the prize card, so both players not optimal, but Versus Seeker in the prize cards, it's actually not as hideous as it looks. As long as he can get into an early hand, he's going to start taking these prizes, and having access to Versus Seeker throughout the game is actually going to be really important and a good way for him, so he will always have a progression into his next turn as he takes these prize cards.
Yeah, you don't need these Versus Seekers during your turn 1. You don't want to see them. You want to go down in hand size to be able to play those Shaman EX, as both players are just waiting for the judge to give them the signal that they are ready to take off for round number 1.
Yeah, indeed. Both players look pretty ready. They both seem kind of calm. Marc is typically known for being a very calm player. He doesn't react too much to the game. He's seen it all. He's been around in the game so long that he knows that anything can happen, and he just has to remain calm and do what he can to win this game.
Yeah, he looks very much into it, so he's very concentrated. That's what you need. You need to bring your top A game here to advance to the top 4, advance to the finals. It's all about the championships points. It's all about, will we see him again in Nashville?
Indeed. So really, we just have to wait and see for these guys to see what they're going to do here. We don't know who's kicking off just yet, and it looks like the players are about to start, so this is going to be a really interesting match, and I hope you guys all get involved and are ready to see some fireworks kick off here.
Yeah, Marc Lutz for Germany and Stijm de Winter for Belgium. It's an international affair here in Bilbao, and we will see in a couple of hours who's going to take home the title.
Marc Lutz has had such an impressive season already. He is actually the top of the world in championship points right now, and he's once again proving himself to be one of the best players in the game. And we're going to see Stijm kick off here with a Wimpod start, which is actually ideal for him because although it has a 3 energy retreat cost, it does have the ability called Wimp Out on its first turn. It is able to have a free retreat cost, so this is one of the optimal starters for Stijm. It means he can move into any Pokemon that he wants to at the end of his turn. As we see him kick off with a natural Bridget, this is something excellent for him because not only is Bridget the optimal supporter to find on the first turn, it means he's not been forced to put down a Tapu Lele in the process, so he can have as many non-EX, non-GX Pokemon on his board without having to give Marc free prizes.
Yeah, it really looks like a good start for both players. Looking at the basic Pokemon, also Joltik is something that Marc likes to start with. He also has an Oranguru already on his bench, so he would be ready to attack immediately once Stijm passes it over to him.
So Stijm going to go for that Bridget. He's got himself a very typical 2 Trubbish as well as 2 Wimpod. He's also going to attach a Floatstone to the Wimpod. He doesn't need it this turn, but it's something that he can have for future turns. Oftentimes, as long as your Golisopod can tank hits, they are very welcome to have Floatstone on them so they can continue to move between Glissopods and other attackers to get multiple first impressions and other attacks off throughout the game.
Yeah, we also saw that Stijm obviously played his Bridget, but he also has a Professor Sycamore to follow it up next turn, so it looks like a really good start for him. And Marc finds himself a Battle Compressor. That's exactly what you want to see as a Night March player.
That is the one card that you're always looking for as a Night March player. First thing you want to do is, as Marc is doing right now, looking through every single card in his deck. He's going to be counting Versus Seekers. There's lots of those prized. But other than that, he's going to be checking how many Night Marchers are there, so he knows his maximum damage output. He's also going to be trying to put some of these into the discard pile very early, maybe alongside some supporters if he has his 1 remaining Versus Seeker in his hand. And going to try and get his turn rolling here, getting some early damage in the discard pile. He only needs to hit 70 this turn, so that's going to be 4 Night Marchers. Yeah,
the Battle Compressors and maybe a couple of Ultra Balls is what you are looking for, and we'll have a quick look here. I think there was that Trainer's Mail or so, I believe? No, I don't think he's playing any Trainer's Mail.
Yeah, he's playing the full complement of 4 Trainer's Mail, so I think he's got plenty to do in his turn. As is typical in the expanded format, turns are way longer than they are in standard because we have much more powerful draw item cards, the Battle Compressors and the Trainer's Mails, alongside Shaman EX, which Marc is playing 3 of as well. His list is actually identical to Michael Pramwatt's Fort Wayne winning list, so all of you at home can pretty much know Marc's exact 60 already at this point, so if you're trying to watch along, you know exactly what's in his list.
Yeah, so he also eyed out a Getzes there. Very interesting to see if he decides to go with this, or if he's more likely to go for the discarded Professor Sycamore that he was looking for, and he says, no, I don't need a Getzes anymore. Stijm had already his first turn. Getzes is much more powerful if you're the one going first. Yeah, that's definitely true, and Stijm's list is not really item heavy. Sometimes there are more combo-focused decks, like maybe mirror matches, or against things like Turbo Darkrai. These are very item-reliant archetypes. And Marc, he gets a really nice Ultra Ball here. That's the other 2 Night Marchers that he needed, so he will be getting a knockout this turn, and he's also going to continue by getting an Ultra Ball here, maybe trying to find another Night Marcher for the response KO so he can put it down on his bench straight away, or potentially if he needs more in his hand, he could go for a Shaman EX here to get a nice little top-up. Yeah, it really depends on what he has in hand right now, because if he doesn't have another Night March, he might have to go more conservative, and there we go. If he went for Shaman, he was kind of forced to find himself another Ultra Ball or a Night Marcher to follow it up next turn. Yeah, so Marc is going to continue to look for his deck, as is typical for players to do. It's always a good habit to get into, knowing what is in the prize cards, so not only are you realising what you have access to, but also what you can draw into throughout the game. He's actually going to grab himself Shaman EX, it looks like. Maybe he wants to refuel his hand a little bit more here. Yeah, Marc doesn't know it, but the Garbotoxin Garbodor is in the prize cards for Stijm, so he will be free to use Shamans probably a couple of more turns here. But he doesn't know that, of course, so he might rely on Shaman right now while he can play it. Or well, maybe. It looks like he's pretty content just to Night March here. This is one of the skills of Night March, because he could have had a even more explosive turn. We saw he had the resources in hand. He could have gone crazy and put, maybe 10 Night Marchers into the discard pile. But Marc knows this turn he doesn't need to. He only needs to deal 80 damage, so why put himself in a more disadvantageous situation if the opponent is going to be playing Oricorio or Karen? He has to assume that pretty much every player is going to have these sorts of Night March techs in their list, so he's being only as greedy as he needs to be, really, not pushing any further until he has to. Yeah, that's what the importance. That's very important here for him to do, as Stijm is playing his Professor Sycamore. We already saw he finds himself the first Treasure Lands, Garbodor. It already has a Rainbow Energy attached to it. He would love to find himself also a Golisopod, but it doesn't seem like he found it. Yeah, it doesn't look like he has it, so he may just be forced to freely retreat with the Floatstone. Marc definitely has enough items in his discard pile, because Joltik isn't the most tanky Pokemon. It only has 30 hit points, so it is going to be knocked out by a Trashalange, and Stijm is going to even up the prize trade, 1 apiece so far. Yeah, this is what we'll be seeing. There will be probably knockouts every single turn, and if there isn't, that means that player is in trouble. Yeah, definitely. So Marc is going to bring up his Pumpkaboo,
This means that this turn he is going to have to find himself a Dimension Valley as well as a double Colorless Energy in order to knock out this Garbodor in response. Currently doing 200 damage to this Garbodor thanks to weakness, so he doesn't need to put any more Night Marches in once again this turn. So really, all he's going to look for is another Night Marcher for the bench, as well as a double Colorless Energy, and most importantly, the Dimension Valley to do the 3 energy attack cost of Pumpkaboo's Night March attack.
Yeah, we know there is a Shaman already in his hand, so he will have access to more cards this turn. He decides to go with a Puzzle of Time. Now there's a second copy in his hand, so that works perfectly. That's
going to help him out for sure. That's going to maybe get back the double Colorless Energy if it's not already in his hand, and it could also maybe get some other resources, maybe even another Night Marcher back to his hand, because he doesn't need any more damage this turn, seeing as though he already has the weakness in there as well. So he could pretty much end his turn quite contently as long as he's able to find that Stadium card, which is all important. You can see him mulling over what he wants to do. Even something like a Trainer's Mail could help him on his way to find a Stadium card, but it looks like he's going to grab himself another Versus Seeker. He already has one in hand, so potentially he won't be going for a Sycamore this turn. He may be going for a different supporter.
Yeah, I was also thinking maybe Trainer's Mail, give him another look at 4 more. Oh, he already has the Dimension Valley.
Okay.
There we go.
That's pretty nice. So what else does he really need to do this turn? Really just finding another Night Marcher for the bench. That is all he's going for here. We are going to see him mulling over the Shaman EX, whether or not it's worth his time. We are going to see the Field Blower proactively from Marc. He's going to be able to get an extra card here off of the setup, so he's going to be getting himself a bunch here. Gets himself into no Pokemon, but potentially this Trainer's Mail could help him out a little bit more. Also, we could bear in mind that finding a Float Stone could help the same regard, because he doesn't have to put down more Night Marchers. He does in fact get himself a Marshadow GX. This can copy the attacks of Night Marchers as well, so it almost acts as one. So pretty much the ideal turn here, and he's also going to add a Getsis to the collection and get a huge 4 cards there.
Wow, how does he do it? How does he know that?
Well, Stijm had a fairly large hand size, but he just caught him in a sweet moment. There was quite a handful of different items there. There was the Ultra Balls, which Stijm was pretty much needing to get into something like a Tapu Lele to refresh his hand, because it looks like he can respond with a Garbodor, but from then he doesn't have much going.
No, this is really awkward now for him, because there's a Guzma, I think there's Blend Energy and a Garbodor, so what is he going to do with it?
So he'll be able to attack next turn and respond on this Pumpkaboo, but he's really going to hope that off the prizes he can get something like a Professor Sycamore. That would in fact be the card that he would take from his prize cards, as long as he takes the bottom right, which is most commonly what people do when they go into an order. So he might still be able to survive this. So we do see him actually promote the Wimpod with the Blend Energy, which means he's more than likely going to play this Guzma this turn and take 2 prizes if possible. So here we go. We do see him evolve into the Garbodor. He's going to go for the Blend, and now he's going to count Marc's discard pile to see how many he can do with his Trash Launch. It looks like it probably will be enough for either the Marshadow or the Shaman EX. Marshadow, of course, does have Psychic weakness as well. So he's going to go ahead and grab himself 2 prize cards.
And he gets
very
the
nice
Sycamore.
Stuff from Sign. And he also gets the Garbotoxin Garbodor. He put down a Trubbish last turn as well from his top deck, so everything going well for Stijm this turn.
All the cards that he had were perfectly invested, and then, of course, the Garbotoxin in his hand. There is another Trubbish which he draw from his deck, so if he finds another Float Zone, so that would be huge, because then abilities would be off.
That's a really big turn from Stijm. Even after being hit with a powerful Getsis, he still had the 3 cards he needed to respond, and not only respond, but take 2 prize cards in the process, going ahead in this game. So Marc really put on the back foot, even having pretty much one of the 2 best turns he's had as a Night March player. That's all you really need, and still Stijm is keeping up.
Yeah, the battle of the bad guys here. Guzma and Getz is going up against each other. Marc now thinking about the options. He has 2 double colorless in play though now, so with Dimension Valley, 2 of the Night Marchers ready to attack. Another Getzis now. So Marc was thinking maybe if you got a Versus Seeker out of that. I see you smiling. There has to be something in hand.
It's just Marc's reaction when you get to see pretty disgusted that he was thinking, well, he only has a couple cards that he's taken from the prize cards. Maybe I could catch him in a sweet moment. Getting things like Versus Seekers, Ultra Balls could put him back into a spot where he had no working hand. But Stijm says, hey, take a look. I've got a great hand.
And he discarded the Garbotoxin Garbodor, so he decides, no, I want to keep my Trubbish for a Trashalands Garbodor, but it doesn't seem to find it here.
It's an interesting choice from him. He could still attach the double Colorless Energy just to retreat the Trubbish this turn, because it looks like he did draw into Golisopod, so if he's trying to continue attacking and keeping up the pressure, he could go Golisopod. There's also not a huge number of Night Marchers in Marc's discard pile, so it will force Marc to draw a bunch of cards and start cycling through his deck maybe so Stijm could finish the game strong with maybe an Oricorio to end up the game. So pretty smart stuff from Stijm. He is in fact going to attach the double Colourless Energy to Wimpod, and he's also going to attach a Choice Band as well. He does have himself a Rescue Stretcher. I wonder if he can move this Trubbish in any way here.
I don't know how he would do it. No, he just passes.
Just the pass. Interesting stuff from him. So he chose not to go for the knockout with the Gliscopod. That was definitely an option for him. But instead he's going to try and leave everything as a non-EX on the board. Marc and him both at 3 prize cards. Marc currently has 2 prize Pokemon on his board, so potentially he could still win a prize race if Stijm simply targets the most important Pokemon right now.
Yeah, if Marc has access to a Guzma here or a Lysander, this would be huge for him. There would be nothing left on the board.
Nothing left for him, so Marc is going to look through the discard pile, see what he has to do this turn. Obviously in terms of damage output he has plenty. The Stadium's remained in play all game, and he is also going to find himself a Guzma. That's a really big hit for him, so he can deal with Stijm's Wimpod, which has all the energy on it if he so wishes.
Let's see what he decides to do there. He certainly has the options.
And,
there we go.
There you go, opting to take out the Guzma. He's just going to say, you know what, both my Pumpkaboos are the same, so there you go.
No, I want this one!
And he can end his turn once again on a Night March. Marc hasn't had to put many Pokemon in the discard pile at all this game, so he's fairly invulnerable to Oricorio that Stijm is looking at in his hand currently right now.
Yeah, I wonder what the damage output right now is for Night March here on Marc's side, because if Stijm would have evolved his Wimpod, maybe this would have gone differently.
Stijm is going to have a look. He's going to start counting for us. This is what we need to see.
Thank you, sir.
There's 4 Night Marches only. Oh no, sorry, there's
6.
6 and a Marshadow. So 70 damage from the Oricorio that he can place around the board. It's not fantastic. It could mean he could respond on a Pumpkaboo with nothing else, but that's about it. He is eyeing up a teammates as well, so Stijm more than likely will be able to respond on this Pumpkaboo. So as long as he doesn't put down any other 2 prize Pokemon, he still has a couple of turns to win this game. He needs to set up his hand to where he can take 1 knockout this turn and also find himself a Guzma, or make sure that Oricorio is going to be in range for him to take the last 2 prizes on Marc's Shaymin EX.
I think he's also missing energy, so that might be something that he has to take here, and probably maybe a Float Stone.
Maybe Energy Floatstone, maybe Energy Guzma if he's trying to hedge that he can win the game, maybe take energy off his prize cards that we know is there. You see him eyeing up the Guzma. He needs to have this to take these 3 prizes. He needs to take 1 this turn and guarantee himself the Shaymin EX that's currently on Marc's board next turn. That has surely got to be his win condition here. So you can see him looking at his hand. He needs the energy this turn, as you've just mentioned. He does have Rescue Stretcher already in his hand, so he can find himself the Garbodor to attack with this turn. And it looks like he also opted for the Guzma, so he's seeing the line that he needs to do to win this game, and I'm really pleased about this.
Yeah, so he's taking those 2 cards, attaching the energy, getting the Rescue Stretcher, Garbodor in the active. It will knock out the active Pumpkaboo, and then we will see if Marc has something to disrupt Stijm's hand.
So here comes the Rescue Stretcher. He's actually going to go ahead and grab himself a Wimpod. This is a really interesting decision here. We're going to see the payment of retreat, and okay, so because of the Dimension Valley, he can still opt to use Oricorio's attack this turn instead, and he is going to go ahead. Looking at the discard pile, he knows he has 7 counters, so he can knock out the active Pumpkaboo and also place 1 anywhere else, and he opts, why not, let's just go with the Pumpkaboo as well on the bench.
There we go. Okay, this is not how I expected it to happen in my head, but it's fine, it's working.
Okay, so as long as he's able to find an energy next turn, he has both Trubbish on his bench. He could maybe find himself a Garbodor with a Guzma play. Maybe that's the line he's looking for here. He also has himself a Gliscopod in his hand, so maybe next turn he can just evolve, find an energy, and then Guzma for the game as well. So he's given himself multiple ways to win the game, as long as he's able to find an energy again next turn.
Exactly, so he has to retreat whatever he has to promote there next turn. He could have also saved the Rescue Stretcher for next turn and then recover the Oricorio there again.
Yeah, that's also true.
But again, he had to retreat twice to make this happen, so let's see what he will be able to do next time. Maybe even Marc finds an N or so to disrupt his hand.
Yeah, that might well be the case here. We are going to see Marc, he's going to start thinning his hand finally. It's incredible how large his deck size is for a Night March player. Oftentimes you see people motoring through, playing as many battle compressors as possible, trying to really thin their hand and their deck. But Marc has been playing around the Oricorio all game. He does do an Ultra Ball for 2 more Night Marches, so he's getting himself into a good position here. He could be going for something like Tapu Lele to find himself any supporter card that he wishes. Instead he's just going to grab himself a Tauros. Maybe this is a thinning card if he is going to go for the Professor Sycamore. I wonder what he's going to go for here.
He decides to show us. We approve, so he chooses it, puts it into his hand.
Grabbing himself the Tauros, you're going to see him looking through once again his discard pile. He has plenty of options in terms of supporter usage, because once again he keeps getting Versus Seekers off of his prize cards, as we already mentioned. We are going to see the computer search now, so Marc is going to have free reign over whatever he wants to do from his deck here. I wonder what he's going to be going for. It could be something like the N, really trying to hurt Stijm. As long as he can set himself up with another Night Marcher and maybe a double colourless on his bench again, and then finish on an N, he could be in a really good spot here.
Yeah, it's really strong. Especially, you see the decisions here as the game progresses take a little bit longer. This is just because at the beginning of the game, nothing much changed. Things or situations are pretty much the same every single game and match. But this time, Marc has so many information available to him. He can make better decisions, and of course, it takes some time to make these. And having computer search to follow up on these decisions is just so powerful for him right now.
So you do see him. He is going to use the computer search, gets rid of 2 item cards, which aren't going to be too helpful. The Trainer's Mail and the Choice Band. There's nothing really that he's looking for this game because he's already got the computer search, so he's going to end very strongly. He is going to go ahead and find himself the N here, and looks like as long as he can find himself maybe a Night Marcher and a double colourless for the bench, he can be content to N. Even though he'll be putting himself down to 2 prize cards, he does have a Rangaroo on his own side of the board, so he can maybe instruct his way into a larger hand size once again. So Marc just going to go for that N here. He doesn't need too much. He's just going to hope that he can stop Stijm from getting a response knockout here by lowering his hand size just to 2 cards.
Yeah, for all Marc knows, 2 cards for the board that Stijm has right now. What are they going to do? If there's no Professor Sycamore in there, like Marc must think that he can take 2 knockouts right now.
Yeah,
that's what he's going after.
It looks like Stijm needs like a 3-card combo in order to win this game. He needs to find himself a Guzma, an Energy, and one of his stage 1 attackers. So he did actually get himself an Ultra Ball, so maybe Stijm can go for a Tapu Lele. He doesn't actually play any Shaymin EX in his deck. So
and computer search.
He gets a computer search, that's going to be nice. But without any Energy or stage 1, as we said, he needs the combination of all these cards to win this turn. So he's going to have to settle for maybe something like Professor Sycamore in order to then just take the single prize knockout. And Marc's still not too pleased about this outcome.
Yeah, I was looking at Marc's face just to wait for the computer search. He's like, at least I tried.
Marc Cam is definitely my favourite Cam when we're on stream. He just has the best reactions to this card game. It is incredible. He is keeping calm and doing everything he can do. I wonder how he did off his own end there. But regardless, we are going to see Stijm. He is going to use the computer search. He could even choose to go for Tapu Lele because it thins an extra card from his deck, but he could also go directly for the Professor Sycamore here. That's what he's going to do. He doesn't want to put his own 2 prize Pokemon down. Of course, it doesn't matter at this point, but even the Tapu Lele could have been an attacking option to take a knockout in response. So we are going to see the computer search and simply Sycamore away this hand. Again, he still needs to find himself Energy as well as...
oh wait, no, this is discarded. Yeah.
Yeah, he's going to discard it all and use the Sycamore here for 7 cards. Actually, a Sludge Bomb could do a decent number here if he finds a Muscle Band. No, that's not going to be enough. If he had Muscle Band, Psychic Energy, maybe a Tool Drop as well. These are all options for him. He has so many attacking threats in this deck. It does look like he's found himself a Garbodor and an Energy card, so doing very well here. He's going to be able to get the response knockout, and that's pretty much all he can ask for.
Exactly.
Marc currently doesn't have another Night Marcher on his board, so he's going to require something like Floatstone or a Guzma of his own, as well as finding a Night Marcher and a double colours Energy, and we know that Stijm's taken out a few of his Night Marchers, so there's not many double colourless left in his deck.
Yeah, so no, all that Stijm is asking for, please Marc, don't have the means to respond here. That's all he needs to do, because then he would have the next knockout on the next turn. It really is in Marc's hand now. Can he pull it off?
And we don't know really what's in his hand. He is going to start with a Battle Compressor. He is going to get rid of some more cards that he doesn't want to draw into. Obviously, the Pokemon Ranger is not a card that's used for this matchup. It's more in here for something like Seismitoad or the Turtonator decks that use Shell Trap a lot of the time. We're going to see him also discard a Teammates as well as a Tauros. These are all cards that he doesn't really require. And he actually has a second Battle Compressor in his deck as well. So maybe he's doing this just so he can thin his hand to get an Instruct draw. Or if he already has something good in his hand, he may just be thinning his deck in general so that he can draw more cards off of something like a Professor Sycamore. He's also going to choose to get rid of a Versus Seeker from his hand, so he feels like this game only has one more turn. He needs to respond on this Garbodor this turn. Versus Seeker isn't in his hand, so he can't use it. Let's just get rid of it now and improve his draws.
Yeah, generally Marc is always doing a good job in hiding his hand from us, so we don't have that information there. There's a Shaymin.
Ooh, this is big. He found himself a Shaymin EX. He also chose to get rid of a...
Night Marchers.
Oh, okay. Right, There we go. There's a Versus Seeker here. I wonder what he's going to go for.
So
Does he have
Guzma,
teammates available to him?
Yes.
He has teammates, so he can't win the game this... Oh yeah, he can win the game this turn. He can get himself the Floatstone and the double Colourless Energy, puts down the Joltik, and simply retreats the Shaman EX for the final Night March to get the last prize of the game. What a close series that was.
The Versus Seeker is what he was looking for, and the Shaman got it. So Marc, Lutz 1-0. Yeah, now we see a little reaction on his face. That was a close one.
He won the game, but you wouldn't notice because he's shaking his head and he's still displeased about the whole way that went down.
He's disgusted.
But we saw some interesting Getsis plays from him there. Oftentimes people think of Getsis as just a turn 1 card, but it's something almost like a delinquent where your opponent always has to have that in the back of their mind as long as it's in the discard pile or even when it's in the deck, because people can use Tapu Lele now. They have to be aware, well, how badly am I hurt from a Getsis on this turn?
Yeah.
And how bad is it if I play my resources early, if it gets end away, I've wasted an Ultra Ball anyway, or I've wasted some of these other item cards in the first place. So it's a delicate line to cross when there's always a Getsis potentially in the mix.
Yeah, Marc was very close to winning earlier already because of the Getsis, but then of course we saw that Stijm was able to get himself a Professor Sycamore from the return knockout there, and Marc was maybe anticipating a little bit shorter match, but he went through the whole thing, as you can see, a little bit exhausted here, but he made it. He's 1-0.
Yeah, 1-0. And that's all he can really wish for here. One more game and he will progress into the top 4. Stijm here, he still has 38 minutes on the clock, and as we saw, it's a fast exchange between these two decks. Neither player needs too much damage in order to get response knockouts. Marc will play enough items for Stijm's Garbodor most of the time, just for the low HP Night Marchers, and Marc himself hasn't needed many Night Marchers of his own, as long as Stijm continues this one prize game, which he's been attempting in the first series there.
These prize cards belong to Stijm, obviously. Golisopod, well, a couple of Pokemon that are relevant here. Also a double Colourless Energy and a Blend Energy, so a little bit rough for Stijm. It's
a little bit rough. I think taking some of these cards as he goes will be helpful to him, but he has to be in the race in order to start accessing these cards. But as long as he's able to, not too shabby, nothing in huge counts, we are going to see Marc a couple of puzzles of time as well as a couple of Night Marchers. We've said that as long as Stijm doesn't go for the Golisopod approach, that shouldn't hinder him too much. If, however, he does try and tank with a Golisopod GX, this could be a problem for Marc.
And the Oranguru start is far from optimal for Marc as well. Stijm, however, starting again with a Wimpod, so he has free retreat available to him during his first turn. He also has an Ultra Ball, so I think we will see a good turn from him. Yeah,
good turn most likely. Probably Ultra Ball for Tapu Lele to find himself Bridget. We know it's not prized. That's oftentimes what you see in the standard format. And for Stijm, he's going to want to start getting an army of Trubbish and Wimpod down as he did last game. Also, he's going to have a look through to see if his Oricorio is in his deck. That's also a card that we saw pretty much just have a little cameo role last game, but it could become more important in this series, depending on how much discarding Marc has to do here. So we know it's not prized. He's just going to have a look through. There is the Tapu Lele, going to be going for the Wonder Tag for the Bridget. As we said last game, he was fortuitous in having the one-of copy Bridget in his opening hand without having to use Tapu Lele. This time he's going to be forced to put down a 2-prize Pokemon if he wants to go for the Bridget here. Instead, he may just be opting to go for a single basic Pokemon instead with the Ultra Ball here. But it looks like he's eyeing up a bunch, so it's going to be the Wonder Tag for the Bridget, and he's going to go ahead and grab himself 2 Trubbish, as well as a Tapu Koko, which he could Wimp out into this turn.
Yeah, if you're thinking about why is this Ultra Ball searching out 5 cards out of his deck, this is not a stronger Ultra Ball, this is just the chain of events, Tapu Lele for Bridget, and then free Pokemon right onto the bench.
There we go. So Stijm is indeed using his Bridget for turn. I wonder what else he has available to him. He's more than likely going to protect this Wimpod into the Tapu Koko, maybe get an attachment in somewhere else, unless he feels that he does have a double colourless in his hand, so he could also opt to maybe power up the Tapu Koko as well. But we do see him opt to put a Rainbow Energy onto his Trubbish, and instead of protecting the Wimpod, he's more happy to protect the Tapu Koko, because this spread damage in combination with Oricorio might actually become a big deal, because he could deal with multiple Night Marches in a turn, which is very disruptive. So I do kind of like the fact that he's protecting Tapu Koko, especially because he does have double colourless energy already in his hand. It's going to prohibit Marc in terms of how many Night Marches he can play throughout the game as well.
Yeah, the trend continues. We haven't seen a Golisopod in game 1, and Stijm is not investing in it here either, so he says maybe the road to victory is playing the game of only conceding one prize at a time.
And Stijm was very prepared this morning. He was mentally in the zone. We came in here at 8 o'clock in the morning here, and he was already here, shuffling up, testing games against Night March. So he's been playing against this matchup all morning and probably all night as well yesterday. So he is going to find his route, and it looks like going away from the Glycerpod is the way he wants to play this game.
The hardest working man in Pokemon, so he tries to earn the title here at the Bilbao Special. Marc Lutz wants, of course, to avoid this. Battle Compressor, of course, in turn 1, always a good thing for him. Also a trainer's mail. So it looks like Marc has a good start despite the active Oranguru.
Yeah, the big factor is going to be indeed that Oranguru. If he is able to find himself the one-off copy of Floatstone or not, he's already had one Battle Compressor. This trainer's mail does give him potentially another one. He's also eyeing up a few different supporter cards that could be an option here. If he has a good enough hand with maybe even Shaymin EX draws, he could even find himself a means of moving the Oranguru by using a supporter card in Guzma. That's if he has a really good start. But it looks like he's just going to opt to find himself a second Battle Compressor and 3 more Night Marches hitting the discard pile very early here. So that's going to be 6 in the discard pile already for Marc if he opts to finish on these 3. He's also debating maybe some other different options. But it's going to be a lot more Night Marches, a lot more aggressive this time, because he knows he needs to thin his deck a lot more than he did on the opening turns last game, because he needs to find this one-off copy. So he really needs to dig hard if he wants to find the outs that he wants here.
It was a little bit tough to see through his deck there, as Marc's haircut is hiding half of the screen here.
Looks like he's got a second Trainer's Mail. He's got 2 Versus Seekers and a single copy of Puzzle of Time. He didn't put any supporter cards in his discard pile via his Battle Compressors, so those Versus Seekers probably not too helpful. He may still debate on taking a card just because he does have Ultra Ball in there, and maybe he can just thin an extra card from his deck. He's going to go ahead and grab himself a single copy of Puzzle of Time, and just once again making sure he goes through all the moves correctly. It is so important to have the optimal turns here, because we saw how close it was in Game 1, that a single misstep at any point could cost him the game here.
And he takes it immediately to discard with an Ultra Ball there, and I think he went for a Tapu Lele. I can't quite see it. It's somewhere underneath his hair.
I think there's a Pumpkaboo that he's opting to put down, so potentially he has Stadium in hand. Maybe there's also a Shaymin EX or another supporter card to come here. I'd imagine that otherwise he would have gone for some sort of supporter card. So there we go, just the double colourless energy to the Pumpkaboo and also a Professor Sycamore. It's interesting which Night Marcher he chose to go for. He's opted to go for the Pumpkaboo on the first turn, which requires him to find an extra resource this turn in order to attack. But it's less vulnerable to things like Tapu Koko spreading damage, as well as the Oricorio later down the line. So he's going for the tankier Pokemon, even though it's only 60 HP, in order to give himself the best defense against this sort of spread damage approach.
You can see in the live ticker that Luca is just up 1-0 against Fatih, and Fabian Puyol has also won his match top 8 against Manuele, so we will see him in the top 4, and the other top 8 game will be coming up here live on stream, so don't go anywhere. So we'll try to keep you up to date with all the players that you are following today.
So Marc does indeed go for the Ultra Ball, finds himself a Joltik. I think he also does have a Shaymin EX in his hand, so plenty more to come here. Let's see if he can draw into the Floatstone and the Dimension Valley. There's the Dimension Valley.
One.
He's also got an Ultra Ball and a Shaymin EX in his hand, so he could go all out here and go guns blazing, trying to hit this last combo card. He also actually has the Instruct from Oranguru as well, which could get him a card right at the death here, so maybe he still can get this combo going.
Yeah, we can see that he is playing all the item cards, so Stijm might be checking out the amount of item cards there. Doesn't really matter, as the Night March Pokemon would go down with 3 item cards in the discard pile anyway, and the Shaymin EX would be vulnerable with 6 of them. So I think Marc has exceeded his maximum already, so he will just go all in now.
Yeah, Marc's going to start counting through Night Marches and item cards. Both are worth keeping track of now that he knows that Stijm is carrying that Oricorio. So we do see him opt to put down the Dimension Valley this turn. Stijm isn't playing any counter stadium, he simply plays one Field Blower, so he feels fairly content to put it down, and he's also going to go for another Ultra Ball here. Unlikely to take another target because he already has a Shaymin EX in his hand, so that'll be his last card that he wants to go for, and to fill up his bench. So with this last Shaymin EX draw, he's going to really hope to find himself that Floatstone this turn. He could also find himself Computer Search, so he has 2 live targets in his deck, as well as the other Trainer's Mails that he can draw into. There you go, he was shaming the Xing, that's why he's starting to... there's Computer Search! Okay, so he found one of his 2 live targets in his deck. Marc has motored through roughly like 30 cards, I would say, at this point, so it's not too unlikely that he's hit it with 2 live targets, and that is a big draw for him. He's pretty chuffed about it. He can also lower his hand size with the Computer Search as well, which could even give him more Orangaroo draws if he wants something else to fill his hand. So he's going to discard himself the 1 copy of Lysander, as well as the 1 copy of Guzma, and now he's going to look through, definitely going to go for that Floatstone, and he is going to take the first prize here. I can't imagine he'd want to pass at the end of this whole turn. That's what he was digging for this whole time.
No, and he's going to open up the prize race here. This is going to be important for Marc.
So he is going to grab himself that Floatstone. Although you're able to put it as a secret, pretty much everyone knew at that point what he's going to be going for there. He is going to promote that Pumpkaboo. He got himself the Stadium. He got himself enough Night March Pokemon. So he's going to be taking the first prize here on a Wimpod.
Yeah, and Stijm was thinking, please don't find it, please don't find it, please don't find it. And after 10 minutes of turn number 1, he found it.
There we go. So the one thing that's gone badly for Marc here is that he's had to fill his bench. 5 Pokemon, so this Tapu Koko will be netting a lot of damage if he opts to go for it. We do know he has double Colourless Energy in his hand, so maybe that's something he wants to attach to. He also has the Garbodor this turn, so he could simply choose to respond on this Pumpkaboo. It depends what approach he wants to go for here. Does he try and set up Oricorio and a bunch of Flying Flips to take multiple Night Marches out in one turn, or does he want to grab himself single prizes and force Marc to keep drawing cards, drawing through his deck into the late game, finding and maybe missing a double colours on a certain turn that can also get him ahead in the game. So he's got an intricate decision to make here. He is going to definitely choose to attach the double colourless energy to his Tapu Koko, also a Floatstone onto his Trubbish, and he has a very nice N here to try and slow down Marc and get himself a fresh 6 cards.
I would love the flying flips here. We know from his prize cards the Oricorio is not priced, so he can use it, and we also know he has a rescue stretcher. So this could be his way to victory. Especially last game he wasn't successful with the strategy he has, so if he's mixing it up now, maybe he has a better chance at pulling this off. Yeah,
I would love this approach because Tapu Koko is at its strongest right now because Marc has a full bench and he can really cash in on that. He's also going to find himself a few more cards here. Doesn't find himself any Oricorio, but he's going to debate putting down the Wimpod. He's going to fill up his bench, but that really doesn't matter when you're up against something like Night March. They're always going to respond on you, especially when Marc isn't getting knocked out. You know that the Pumpkaboo is still going to be there to stay and announcing Night March. So we are going to see the Flying Flip for 20 on all of Marc's Pokemon, and this is going to be a really nice setup for the Oricorio here.
Yeah, 120 damage across all the Pokemon here. All that Stijm needs to do is find the Oricorio eventually then, and maybe picking up a couple of knockouts there with the Trashy-Lens Garbodor while he is trying to find it.
And yeah, indeed, that's one of the biggest things. When you're able to take out multiple Night Marchers in a single turn, it can be very difficult for Marc to come back. He currently does have a Floatstone on his Orangaroo, which is a big deal, but Marc simply looks at his discard pile and says, yeah, I guess I'll just take the knockout here. There's nothing else he can do.
There's a Guzma in Stijm's hand, so he could think about knocking out the Shaman EX right now and promote it this way while he's still digging. Picking up 2 prize cards would be huge, and then the Oricorio would be able to, let's see, like 3 knockouts for sure. Not quite enough. Then another Trashy-Lens would give him the win.
Yeah, that could be a really nice way of taking some aggressive prize cards. You can see him counting the Pokemon in Marc's discard pile, and I can only imagine that the Guzma is a decent play for him here, unless he wants to guarantee himself the Oricorio. We do see him eyeing up Bridget. It's only going to get him 1 copy, but it could get him the Oricorio right here, right now. He doesn't even need to attach energy cards because the Dimension Valley is in play, so he can simply retreat this Trubbish and get a big knockout here on multiple different Night March Pokemon and set him back whilst also getting attachments on other Pokemon around his board. So I really like this play from Stijm.
Let's see how many Pokemon he is going to be able to knock out. We'll find out right now. So he would need 120 damage. No, that's wrong. He would need
so he is
90 damage.
Doing 1 damage counter on the Joltik, as well as 4 on the active. And it looks like there's 2 more that can go on the other Pumpkaboo
so 70
here.
damage in total.
The Supernatural Dance attack.
There we go. So if he finds the rescue stretcher next turn, this would be huge.
So we see Marc. He has got himself a teammate, so he's definitely going to be knocking out this Oricorio. But what's so important about things like Tapu Koko and Oricorio, they're such high priority threats that you can't ignore them. You simply can't Guzma around looking for the aggressive prizes like the Tapu Lele that's on Stijm's board. You have to take the single prizes and be content with those. So Stijm has just gone ahead in the prize race because he has got this Oricorio, the Supernatural Dance. It'll only get stronger throughout the game, so as long as he can access one of his rescue stretchers that he does play, he could get use out of that again during the game, and we know that Marc is going to keep that stadium in for the majority of the game, so Oricorio can be a threat at any point. So we see the teammates going to grab Marc a double Colourless Energy and simply knock out the Oricorio, and looks like Stijm has found himself Computer Search, so maybe it's going to be back-to-back Oricorio plays even.
Yeah, he now has all the options, even Golicipod GX, which is most likely not going to go for right now, but he could even go for the Guzma play. He still has it in hand. He could pick up a double prize card here with a Shaman knockout, or he could go for the Rescue Stretcher and go again with the Oricorio.
I would love to see the Guzma be played onto a Shaman EX and then Computer Search for the Rescue Stretcher, putting the Oricorio on the bench.
Why not both?
That could be a really, really strong play, because then Marc sort of has to access the Oricorio on the bench, which means he wouldn't be able to end Stijm, and it would just be such a powerful turn if he's able to pull this off here.
Let's see it. There's a Rescue Stretcher. We saw it.
We do see him eyeing it up. He's also eyeing up some energy cards. Maybe he wants to get an attack off with Golicipod and maybe retreat into a single prize Pokemon. That's also an option for him. But yeah, he is looking at the Rescue Stretcher. I'm pretty happy about this. This is going to be a really good play. He's going to count the amount of Night Marches and other Pokemon in the discard pile for Marc. That's going to be a lot. I think it was 9.
Yeah,
9.
90 damage right now.
Oh boy. So if he takes the knockout on the Shaman with the Guzma play with the Garbodor, that would be enough then for the Oricorio to finish off the other Shaman EX at the end of the game. So even Marc couldn't be able to use an N or something. He would have to field blow at his own stadium to prevent an Oricorio simply winning him the game. So we are going to see the Computer Search going to grab himself the Rescue Stretcher to go for the single target immediately into the hand. It's going to be the Oricorio. You can see he's also eyeing up the Guzma. Stijm doing everything right here to initiate the prize race as aggressively as possible and put himself in a spot. Ooh, okay. He's gone for a different approach. He's just going to go for the Oricorio this turn. So the reason why it may have been better to Guzma this turn is because he has it in hand, and it means that Marc can now N him out of this option to win the game. Whereas if he had gone for the Guzma play this turn, he could have dealt with the Shaman EX and had Oricorio waiting on the bench. No matter what Marc did to his hand, he potentially had game on board. So it's interesting to see Stijm just going for the Shaman this turn, and now it potentially opens the door for Marc to have an end play to maybe push Stijm back out of the game.
Yeah, not all is bad for Stijm, because Marc is still in a very difficult situation here. While he has to avoid losing next turn, he still has to find something after his Pumpkaboo might potentially be knocked out, if it is, so that he can still keep on attacking. There's the end. This is the number one winning condition. He knows it, and he's going to play it now.
Yep, he is going to put down the Tapu Lele GX, just a single copy, as well as a Marshadow as well, and then we see Marc go for the end. Once again, he has Oranguru developed on his own side. He's going to be drawing 3 cards, but potentially could get more from Instruct later down the line. So he has to do this. He has to deal with the Oricorio this turn and hope that Stijm, off of this N to 2, isn't going to get a Guzma for the game on any of his 2 prize Pokemon at this point, because there's so many item cards in Marc's discard pile. Marc is just going to simply finish on the Night March. Stijm can promote his Floatstone, and let's see, he gets a Versus Seeker. Does he have a Guzma or Lysander in his discard pile? There is the Guzma. He's got it. He is going to square up this game here. The Versus Seeker Guzma, and that is going to be it. We're going to game 3.
Game number 3, so Stijm makes it happen. Doesn't matter how he did it. The most important thing is that he tied up this match now and has a chance of advancing to the top 4. Yeah,
he got there, and he really demonstrated how this combination of Tapu Koko and Oricorio can be so strong against Marc and Night March in general. We saw in game 1, Marc was very conservative with his bench. He only put down Night Marchers when he had to, only had 1 Shaman on the board for a lot of his game. But in this game, because he led Oranguru, it was so awkward for him, he had to cycle through as many cards as possible. In order to do that, he had to bench the full 5 Pokemon, which then made the Tapu Koko much stronger and also made Oricorio much cleaner in order to take these efficient prizes without even using NG cards. So Stijm really demonstrating how this 2-card combo can almost counter an entire archetype.
Yeah, it's really impressive the way that he maneuvered his deck here. He realizes that half of the Pokemon that he's playing won't do him any good. Golicipod not playing any role whatsoever in this format here against Marc, but all the other Pokemon are doing a great job. So as long as he has access to Tapu Koko, as long as he has access to his Oricorio next turn, if they're not priced, he might be able to pull this off.
I love how Stijm identified with his Computer Search. He said, you know what, Rescue Stretch is exactly what I need here. I need to go for Oricorio as often as possible because it's so efficient. It's a 1 prize Pokemon that Marc has to deal with, whereas he is oftentimes taking more than 1 prize card, and it's just very efficient trading. It's something that Night March is actually known for doing. by Guzmering and taking big knockouts on 2-prize Pokemon oftentimes, but Stijm is opting to go as non-EX as possible, keep his Wimpods as little old Wimpods, and only letting Golisopod in if maybe he could finish the game on a Shaman EX knockout. So he has the option for them, but doesn't go for them because they're just such sweet prize cards for Marc. So I really like the approach Stijm's gone for here, and his testing has been paying off this morning.
Yeah, and the good news is for both players here, nothing to worry about too much here in the prize cards. The double colorless energy is never something you would like to see as a Night March player, but it is only one copy, and on the other hand, for Stijm, we also see nothing to worry about.
So, Marc is going to be able to kick off here. He has found himself a Pumpkaboo, which is a much nicer start for him. And let's see, he's mulling over his hand. He does have a Tapu Lele, so he will have his choice of supporter. Wherever he wants to go for here, he can do. Maybe even it's going to be a Gets his turn 1. That is oftentimes a play. As long as his hand is strong enough already, he could start trying to disrupt Stijm here. It could even be something like a Hex Maniac trying to deny the Tapu Lele using Wonder Tag. But yeah, it's going to be a turn 1 Gets here, and let's see what it does to Stijm's hand. It doesn't look like he has much in there. It looks like there's 3 item cards, but Stijm actually doesn't have much going for him at all, so this could be a big swing. Even if the Gets itself doesn't do much, Marc will now know that Stijm's hand is not great.
No, Stijm is in top decking mode before his turn began. If that Gets is played, he knows. Well, even with the Gets, there's not much he can go with, really. Choice Band versus Seeker Heavy Ball, there's nothing to do.
This is going to be just a 3-card swing from the Gets by the looks of things, but as we say, Stijm actually doesn't have much going on. He only has energy cards, and it looked like a Garbodor in his hand, so Marc is going to be able to see this, and he's going to be pretty happy with himself, even if it is just a 3-card Gets. Let's see what it is here. There is a Heavy Ball, a Choice Band, and a versus Seeker, and 2 Rainbow Energies and a Garbodor. So 3 cards for Marc, whereas Stijm has to shuffle in. Any of those 3 cards could be top decked now, so statistically he's much worse off than he was before the Gets, so it's a little bit of incentive to use it. And of course, he is now in top deck mode. It's just an energy, so it's going to be an attachment of a blend to the Tapu Koko and a pass. And well, that is it. He just concedes. He just says, you know what, Marc, you've got it. You're Night March.
I believe
You've won the game.
Yeah, he's looking like, okay, if you're conceding the match here, I'll take it.
It's so heartbreaking for Stijm. He played so well in that second game.